Councillors, can we begin the meeting again? We had a short break because the live stream is now continued. Could we pick up from the item 7B, and I will just announce again that the item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Growth and Investment set out at item 7B of the agenda. The report concerns an update on the Council's spending in relation to Year 1 of the UK Share Prosperity Fund. Councillor Picker, will you move the report?
Madam Mayor, I so move.
Who will second the report?
I will, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just before I come to the substance of the item, I'd just like to place on record my thanks to the Chief Finance Officer for his work in preparing the budget, which I neglected to do earlier, and also my thanks to the Chief Officer for Growth and Investment and to the planning team for the report that's before us this evening. The report is relatively self-explanatory, and we've already been here a while, so I'm not going to repeat myself entirely. But it concerns the reallocation of funding following notification received by the Council of a planning application for digital signage and other uses, detailed in the report from a private sector investor in the town centre. You will recall from the report that we moved last year and agreed that digital signage formed part of our initial UK shared prosperity funding for Year 1. And as that is no longer necessary thanks to private sector investment, we have needed to reallocate that funding at relatively short notice. As such, the proposal sets out a number of meanwhile uses and short-term wins, including renovation of the market, which some of you will already have seen taking place, and signage, which again, some is already up around the town centre, more will follow, support for events for the bicentenary of rugby football, and also of support for our celebrations of His Majesty the King's coronation in the summer. Councillors will note in 4.2 and 4.3 of the report that even with that reallocation of funding, there is still a slight underspend. And in the spirit of cross-party working, I was going to invite anyone with ideas for how we might use that work to contact either myself or the Chief Officer. However, I am going to shamelessly copy one of Councillor Sanderson's suggestion, which is the signage he referred to in the town centre. So I will pass that on to the Chief Officer. The second element of the report relates to the UK Shared Prosperity Local Partnership Group, which we will be forming through a report to Council and Cabinet in the near future. It sets out how we will bring together groups from within this council on a cross-party basis, community organisations, the retail and business sector within the town centre for the years 2 and 3 spend of the UK Shared Prosperity funding, which makes up the vast majority of the spend over the course of the 3-year period. And more detail on that will be coming very shortly, but I just wanted to put it on record here and now. So it is ultimately a good news story, and I hope that you will all support it this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last summer, we set up a number of working parties to look at various aspects of redeveloping the town centre. I chaired the Public Realms one, and each of the working parties contained members from all 3 political groups and also involved public consultation. As a result of cross-party working and public consultation, we were able to come up with a list of costed recommendations for improvements to the town centre regeneration. So I'm absolutely delighted that we can now proceed with spending some of that money, and yes, we ticked all the boxes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Hey.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I will certainly take Councillor Picker up on his offer. I too worked on the working party with Councillor Lawrence. We clearly identified works that were in desperate need to be done, and some of the dissertation boards, which record our historical side of the borough, are in a woeful sense of site neglect, and they need upgrading too. So if we're going to begin to dress this town the way we want it to, so it's a pleasure for visitors rather than the ouch factor that it has at the moment, then I would certainly support that.
There are no further speakers. Councillor Pickup, would you like to close?
No, I have no further comments. Thank you.
Right, we're going to vote on the report. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Item 8, notices of motion pursuant to Standing Order 11. Set out at item 8 of the agenda is one notice of motion. In accordance with Council standing orders, I consider that the motion should be dealt with this evening. Councillor Rayburn, will you please move the motion set out at item 8A of the agenda, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move and reserve the right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Rayburn, will you speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it brief because we have taken a while this evening. Inconsiderate and irresponsible schools parking is perhaps one of the greatest concerns for communities, local schools throughout the UK. And certainly within my ward, it's a weekly basis where I have complaints and concerns about inconsiderate and irresponsible parking around schools. There are multiple examples of how various local authorities have addressed this challenge. All of the examples I've seen have had the respective partner organisations, such as county councils, collaborating proactively and closely with the local authority on practical, innovative solutions. I've spent hundreds of hours, literally hundreds of hours, since I've been a councillor and before as a campaigner in my ward, politely sharing leaflets to drivers, showing where the nearest appropriate parking areas are, all within safe, short walks to school. I've organised meetings involving police, national road safety charities, showing the consequences of this behaviour. Some listen, many do not. This behaviour is lazy, inconsiderate and dangerous. There's no excuse for it, irrespective of where you come from home to school, whatever distance it might be. There are appropriate parking areas. There are ways to stop, drop off little Billy or little Susie, and basically let them walk for 15 minutes. My notice of motion simply calls for timely and proactive cooperation and practical action from our county council. And I believe there are some actions in the pipeline already, but we need timely action. And I ask members to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the reasons I declared an interest as a county councillor was because of this motion that's been brought forward. And can I thank Councillor Rabin for bringing it forward, because it just not only affects his area, I think it affects most schools in the county. When you speak to most elected members and they'll say pick up and drop off times is an issue. And having one of the biggest primary schools within Warwickshire, I can tell you, you will see a lot of blaspheming and a lot of swearing and other stuff going on at the same time. I'm a little bit surprised with some of the wording, and I'll let other people touch upon that. As a county councillor, I suppose I'm a bit lucky as a twin hatter. I get to see both sides of it, and I do spend quite a lot of time with school parking issues across the wards and speaking to my fellow councillors within those wards about it, and certainly around the Safe and Active Travel Schools programme, who are an extremely proactive team who will come out and they'll meet borough councillors, they'll meet county councillors, and they go into the schools and the rest of it. One of the problems is, of course, is you've got a fragmented education system, fragmented schools with academies and schools which don't have to always fully engage, and that is a problem not just only for this issue but for others as well. The other part around this is I'm a little bit surprised because the area that you're covers, I think you've got 2 Conservative county councillors, and I don't know whether you've been talking to them or not about the particular work that's going on. So they should be aware, and I thought that would have been reflected within the particular motion, really, that come forward. But what I am aware about, which hopefully you are, that the school keep clear markings are not covered at the moment by civil parking enforcement. But they will be, because there's stuff coming through the county at the moment, and they're proposing to have all school keep clear markings legally enforceable, so nobody will be able to stop on the markings, and that will operate from 8 a.m. to 1700 p.m. Monday to Friday and term times. Not formally approved as yet, but it will be operational this year, I'm assured, and it's been brought forward. So there's that, and I know that's a big problem that I've had within my area and other areas about that legal enforcement that can be done with that. The biggest driver behind this is the actual schools themselves. Has the governing body got a champion that sits around this particular subject? I don't know in your particular patch because I haven't really looked at the schools. We certainly have them for Paddocks and Eastlands and other schools. And we're talking quite heavily with them about their little transport plans which they produce. At the same time, the School and Active Schools programme are now producing maps, and they're starting to produce those, which have the walking distances that come in to there and have safe walking routes. And of course, the Liberal Democrat motion years ago actually put safer schools to routes and money and allocated that. I'm afraid it's all gone now. It went in the cuts a few years back, but it's all been spent. There was a lot of stuff going on, and that's why I'm quite surprised. I know how much conversation you have with your colleagues on the county council, but I would really urge you to do that and engage with the School and Active programme at the same time to do that. I mean, you call for a cross-party working group, and that's fine. We'll support it, what's here today, but there is a ton of stuff which is going on.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, to everything Councillor Roothouse said. I'm really puzzled by the notice of motion as it came through, particularly at the outset, the references to the Highway Code. I looked it up because I'm a nerd, and I'm interested in detail. And what's quoted just isn't matched by what's actually in the Highway Code. The points that are, the rules that are raised are actually to do with cycle lanes and cycle tracks. That's 140. And Rule 218 is to do with home zones and quiet lanes. So I think it's been presented inadequately to start with, because that's erroneous. It's a bit like motherhood and apple pie, this, isn't it? Who would argue with safer transport to schools, safer parking outside schools, more considerate people outside schools? We're all in favour of that. So why am I not able to support this motion? And it's because it's ignoring the context of work that's already happening within the county council, and Councillor Reid has made that point too. It seems to me this proposal's been made without any kind of discussion with the traffic and parking officers at county, and I find that absolutely amazing. Firstly, it's, well, let's look at the deployment of civil enforcement officers. And we've already said underfunding from central government means we've got too few of many things, one of which is CEOs. It's a service that's contracted out by the county council to CSL, but the motion's actually calling on CEOs to enforce police matters. That just can't happen. I'm making direct eye contact with the councillor over there, and I'm sure he'll back me up on that. The officers at county are quite clear that there's not the resources to make a policy shift as described in this notice of motion. But there are other initiatives which are aimed at ameliorating some of the problems. As I said, they've contracted out to NSL to introduce mobile enforcement vehicles. These can detect and auto-process cars parked in restricted areas, which is great. Much more effective, worth the initial outlay. They're there already, despite what's been said on some websites, you know. They are there, and they are being used. An audit already conducted shows many schools don't have the correct signage for enforcement. The schools keep clear zones. Plans to get that sorted out as a first step over the next financial year or in the near future. There's already a road safety education team working on Kids and Cars Don't Mix. They want to partner with schools to develop a strong publicity programme, and they're very keen to engage with councillors at county and borough. The team are picking up schools with the most significant issues and considering some very radical action. It's still in discussion at the moment, and some of it is to do with things like timed road access, which is extremely radical. The motion mentions a Warwickshire County Council cross-party group. There was a cross-service group, and I think that might be the one that Councillor Rabin is alluding to, the School Parking Working Group 2021, which included road safety education, road safety engineering, parking team, schools crossing patrols, police and safer neighbourhoods. They did publish a report, and I've actually got a copy, and I can make that available to you. I could find it. The group's now been subsumed into the Road Safety Partnership Group, which is part of Warwickshire's Road Safety Partnership, including police and fire and rescue. They'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. I guess my real question is, why haven't you discussed this with parking management? Because obviously there are projects and improvements underway. Your county councillors will know about this, so partner up with them and with the officers. Approach transport and join in with what's already happening and help to move it forward. It doesn't make sense to me as a notice of motion. It's not logical in the context of what's already being done. You don't need a notice of motion to work with parking management. It's to do with schools. We've heard a lot about school reports and things tonight, copying homework and so on. Right, so this is meant to be helpful. As an old, in many ways, teacher, number one, improve your research skills. Number two, work more effectively with others. Number three, do your homework.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, and just picking up one of the points that Councillor Brown has outlined in terms of the reference to the Highway Code. I have tried to look up the Highway Code during the meeting, and I've just circulated an email to all councillors, and the references to the Highway Code in the original motion do in part seem to have been replaced by Rule 244 and Rule 145. I'm happy to read that out if members wish for me to read that out. But yeah, just to assist members, and as I said, the link to the Highway Code is there for your reference.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, most of what I was going to say already said by others, but you're right about the Highway Code. It was reviewed and republished in September. Where did I find the date? July 2022, and a lot of the references in the motion have been revised and not changed. The same intention is there, but the numbers are not correct. I wanted to speak because in my ward, which is shared by Councillor Dumbledon and Councillor Arnack, we have probably an unique situation where we've got 5 schools in the ward, but 3 of them are almost on top of one another. They're very close together, and there are only 2 access roads really to to that area. So we've had problems right from the start. In fact, we had problems before the start because we campaigned, we campaigned against the siting of the school in that area. I should make it clear that we didn't campaign against the setting up of an additional secondary school because we could see that it was needed, and that was in the north, where the reports from the County Council indicated that the deficiency in school places, secondary school places, was going to be in the north. So we said, we indicated what would happen if this built it where they have, and it's happening. Huge problems with parking, dangerous parking, inconsiderate parking, people's drives being blocked and so on. And we've been in consultation with the school. We've also had discussions with the County Council, and I'm afraid those discussions didn't really get very far. We managed to get one of the safety officers, highway safety officers, out to have a look at the problems, which was very good. And she identified a few fairly minor things that could be done in order to ease this issue. It wouldn't resolve anything completely, but it would help to ease it. So we agreed with those suggestions. She took them back into the office, and they weren't approved. We didn't get backing from our own county councillor or from the other officers. And the reasons they gave for not accepting them were that the school hadn't complained about that problem, which is probably odd because the parents were going to the school. And the second reason was that there hadn't been an accident, which to me is topsy-turvy, because the idea of doing something is to do it before there's an accident. You don't wait for an accident and then do it. Yeah, I've been through the highway code, so that comes
Councillor
out of
Lewis,
my-
can I just ask you to just bring your point of reasoning here or question? We've heard a lot of this during parish meetings and numerous meetings in our own wards. So can you just come with your point that you'd like to raise for this?
Well, I thought I'd done that, but there we are. I can see that this is needed, and I thank Councillor Ribbon for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor.
And we just the point was that we're trying our best to get something sorted out, but we're not necessarily getting the backing from the County Council.
Fair enough. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harrington.
Thank you there. I'm going to pick up the ESOs regarding, EASOs regarding the permits, because my daughter goes to Northland School. Also, you've got in Ben, you've got Andrew Ben, and there's actually no NSL wardens there. So for me personally, putting this in, I don't see it's going to work. Also as well, I pay £25 a year luckily to park outside my house, and also with parking out there is a nightmare. So for me, I can't see any reason why we're going to NSL there. Also, we've got 12 secondary schools and 37 primary schools. So that's a total extra 49 staff. I can't see where that's going to come from. And actually speaking to CEOs on the street, they're struggling to get staff all the time. They're losing them left, right and centre. So this is the reason why I can't support it. But here's a suggestion. If we're going to put all that money into extra people to monitor, why can't we just give kids free school buses? And that would be a lot better idea. It'd be safer, especially from Brownsover and Coton and Bounton, coming into especially the school you're on about, Avon Valley. I think that's a better idea, better spending money than getting people just going and doing tickets, because hopefully that might educate people, and also better for safety and better for the environment. Thank you.
Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a polite response to Councillor Mrs Brown. We have also got parking issues in my ward, in Long Lawford. We're working together with the police, the school, the local residents, and ourselves, and our county councillor. And we've got parking on the grass island, which is HA land. We're having it fenced off. The police have been and issued 5 tickets. So they are working, issuing tickets, just to inform you. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I will declare an interest as a Warwickshire County Councillor before I speak. I bet I had to. Oh, Jerry and Barbara, what lovely praise for the Conservative-led County Council and the initiatives we're bringing forward on safe and active travel. Wow, really nice. I have talked to him. And why I support this notice of motion, so that we're clear, is you can hear around this chamber there is a lot of lack of knowledge about this subject, what is happening, how it's happening. So I think the general thrust of this motion will actually bring forward a little more partnership working between the two councils, and hey, isn't that a good thing? So I'm really pleased to support this notice of motion. Thank you.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, really, because it has been quite a long night. Clearly, there is a problem in terms of collaboration because your councillor there wasn't aware of all these initiatives that were going on and what the art of the possible was and what the art of the impossible is, because lots of things have been quoted tonight in terms of what can happen and what can't happen and what's realistic. I mean, if Councillor Timms thinks there's lots of money to be sending all these people out to all these different places, great. And it would be good to see more collaboration. But at the end of the day, wrong numbers have been quoted in the the actual notice of motion. We've already had that clarified from the officer. It's not competent notice of motion at all. And do your homework in future. Thank you.
Please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just respond to those points. Thank you, Councillor Mrs Brown, for those constructive observations and recommendations. I will say that the 2 rules that I stated in the notice of motion are from 2 different versions, 2 different editions of the Highway Code. One 1983, the other one a revised version in 2004. The content is correct. The actual rules that are mentioned in here are incorrect, so apologies for that. They're from 2 different revisions. I will say that I have been collaborative. I've been talking to both my Conservative county councillors and also with Warwickshire County Council. What I've called for here isn't action that isn't there. I'm calling for timely action and to bring through many of the activities that I know are already happening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I shall now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Could we have those in support of the motion, if you could just raise your hands again for a count for those for the motion. Thank you, councillors. So 34 votes for. 34 the motion, 3-0 for the motion and 8 against. The motion is carried. Item 9, correspondence. Is there any correspondence, Chief Executive or Deputy Chief Executive?
There is none, Madam Mayor.
Item 10, the Common Seal. I move that the Common Seal be affixed to the various orders, deed and documents referred to in the agenda. Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Thank you. And those against, please show. Unanimously for. And now we'll move on to item 11. Motion to exclude the public under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. Under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of information defined in paragraph 3 of section 12A of the Act. I so move. Who will second the motion?
Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. That includes the public part of the meeting.